Morning, everybody. Out in the shop again today. Got a little bit different video for you. We're going to be doing some winch rope. My buddy Dave brought his Jeep over. Got a new winch rope we're going to put on. We're going to take his old one that's getting a little beat up. We're going to make an extension out of it too. So he's got some winch extensions now to go along with his new rope. But we'll get going here. Kind of show you the process of taking. This is an Amazon rope, not necessarily high-end rope. But we're going to show you how to take this rope, make it a little better, and install it on the Jeep. We're also going to show you a method that you got the nice little connector here on the end. Might not match up to your winch, but we're going to show you a universal way of hooking up these winch ropes using what's called a constrictor knot. And we're actually going to tie the winch rope on. Excellent method. Use it on all my winches. Never had an issue with it. It's by far my preferred method for installing ropes. But that's our project for today, so we'll take you along. Okay, got you guys set up on the tripod. Again, you can't see me, but that's probably better video quality when you can't see me in there anyway. So this, like I said, Amazon rope. So this is Chinesium winch line. Testing has shown that this winch line is actually pretty good winch line. For the average user, this is actually really good rope put on the front of your Jeep. If you're wanting to convert from a steel cable or just replace an already existing winch rope on your Jeep, it's good rope to use. However, there's a couple of caveats with this. Number one, I'm going to show this. I don't know, hopefully you guys can see that, but this is the thimble end. Number one, this is a ridiculously lightweight thimble up here. Not much protection. That's going to get bent and mangled on the first pull, I think. Number two, and this is the biggest problem I see with these Chinese ropes. This is your splice right here. This is barely maybe 8 inches long, and there's no taper on the end of the rope. This is I would say dang near a criminally bad splice for this eye on here. This should be on a 3/8 rope. This should be about 24 inches long. And we got here barely 8 inches. And number two, 8 inches of that 24 inches should be tapered so that you get a nice smooth taper here. This one's not tapered at all, has a sharp corner on it right there, and this is going to be a weak spot on this rope. If this rope were ever to fail, if we were to get towards the max of this is where this rope would fail, right here at this junction. You can kind of see it pretty good right there, how there's no taper in this. So we're going to fix that. We're going to pull this apart. We're going to put a good splice in it. I also happen to have a higher quality, nice thimble we'll put on the end of it, but we'll show you how to do a locking brummel splice on the end of the rope and a nice 24-inch tapered berry splice on this. Easy to do when the rope is off. That's why I definitely recommend doing this before you put the rope on, because you have access to both ends of the rope, which makes doing the locking brummel splice really easy. Basically, it's actually the only way you can do a correct brummel splice with these thimbles that have the tube on the end of them like that. You have to have access to both ends of the rope to put a correct locking brummel splice on there. So I'll show you this. I got to get this rope unspooled, laid out on the ground here, so we got access to both ends. But and we'll move on with part two here. All right, here's our end. Took our thimble off, and this is quite a lightweight thimble on here. So we got the bare end of our rope. The other thing I did, here's our chafe guard that comes on ropes. I absolutely despise these things, to be honest with you. They don't really work as a chafe guard, and if you're doing any kind of rigging with pulley blocks or anything like that on your winch line, this will inevitably end up bound up in a pulley block. It doesn't matter where you put this on your winch rope, they always seem to find their way into the pulley blocks. So I absolutely despise these things. I take them off of every winch rope on any of my vehicles, all my extensions. I don't have any kind of chafe guards. And they really don't help with chafing either, because what happens is you get sand and dirt and stuff down inside there, and it holds it against the rope, and it actually acts like sort of like a sandpaper on your rope. So these are a gimmick. Get rid of them. That's the best advice I can give you with those, is get rid of them. All right, now we've got the the end of our rope. So we're going to do a real live locking brummel with a 3 fid length bury and a taper on this rope. And we're going to use this heavy duty thimble to do that. Tools I'm going to use, I don't use a fid. You may recognize here, this is a 1-piece cleaning rod for firearms for my rifles. This is an older one. I've got another one that's now replaced this one. So this is my my fid. This is what I use for doing all my splicing. Works out real well. Just got an end on here. You can tape it on, pull it through your rope, and do that. Like I said, we got our thimble. You need a knife, tape measure to measure this off, and on this rope, this is 3/8 rope. A fid length is actually an actual measurement. It's based on the diameter of the rope. For 3/8 rope, it's close enough to 8 inches, and 8 inches is a number I can remember, as opposed to 7.82 or whatever an actual fid length is. 8 inches, close enough. So a 3 fid length bury will be 24 inches of this rope will be buried inside, and then the last 8 inches, we're going to do a taper. This is a 12-strand rope, so we're going to take pairs out and cut them off, take 6 of the strands out along that 8 inches, and then the last 6 we're just going to kind of taper by hand with a knife to give you a little bit of a point down here. Makes a nice smooth bury. So I'll bring you along and you watch me do this. All right, so we're going to make our splice here. I've just gone through, and you can see I'm just kind of loosening up the rope where I'm going to pass the end through the first time. And then I'm going to take these strands, I'm going to work a hole here in the middle. And it is important when you do this that you get 6 strands on each side of the hole, or on each side of the hole that you pass directly through the middle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm off by 1 on that hole. So we'll move 1 over. So I got my hole made perfectly here in the center. And I'm just going to open that up, get my finger through there. First thing we're going to do is take our working on our short end and just stick it through the hole. And this is going to size our loop. This is where, using a locking brummel splice here, we're going to size our loop. So we want to bring that down, get it sized up nice. Don't necessarily want it too tight in there. You want it to come out. Just follow the angles real nice, like that. So the ropes just follow the angle of our thimble. I've got to go find the 100 foot away end here, and I got to take the running line and go back through our working end. Should stop and mention here for a second. This has got the crimped on aluminum end. We can work with that. But because we're going to do the constrictor knot method on this rope, I'm going to do something that's going to make Dave cringe. I'm going to cut this end off to make it easier to work with. And then with this, what we're doing with the brummel is you're just kind of measuring it off. You want to go about 1 rope diameter down. So for where this one crosses, you want to go down basically 1 rope diameter to make your next hole. So we're just going to push that up in there. All right, there you go. There's your locking brummel splice. And it basically is a weave. If you're not familiar with it, Google it. It's an easy thing to do. But basically you take one end of the rope, take your tag end, go through your running line, then you take the end of your running line, go through the end of the tag, and it makes a lock right here. And this, the reason you do that, this actually doesn't add really any strength to the splice on here, but what it does is it makes it so that this won't go, this can't slide at all. This can't move any direction now. It's locked in place. And that just makes it so that when we bury this tag end inside the rope, vibration being loose on there, because this is for lack of a better term, we're all familiar with Chinese finger traps. This works like a Chinese finger trap, expanded out, and it pulls down and grips on the outside, grips the rope. If you don't have tension on it, that can actually work a little bit loose, and this tag end can potentially loosen up and work out over time. So you do a brummel like that, that keeps that tag end from being able to slide out if you get slack in it. So now we're going to take this and we're going to do our taper on the end. I like to taper mine before I run them through the center. So we're going to taper this, and then we're going to run through the inside of our rope here and make our splice. So I'll show you how I do that. And 8 inches, span of my hand, fortunately, is pretty close to 8 inches. Makes this convenient for splicing these ropes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out 2 of these strands at this point right here. And ideally, I want one that's going this direction as you're looking at it, and one that's going this direction as you're looking at it. That gets you kind of on opposite sides. This isn't critical. It just helps keep the integrity of this, taper, the integrity of the rope as it goes down, but not critical. But that's ideally what you want to do is about that point. So I've got this one here that's pointing that way. So I'm going to grab it. I'm actually going to go down 2 more here, because when you pull them out, don't forget when you pull them out, they're going to move up almost an inch in this rope as you pull it out. So I'm going to take this strand that's going this direction, and I'm going to grab it, and we're just going to pull it out. And I'm going to look at the rope here, and right here, I've got a strand going. We're going to come around here to this one, going that way. I'm going to pull this one out. We're going to pull these out basically at this end about 1/3 or 1/4 of the way down, or 1/3 of the way down, 1/3 of the way down. Again, not critical that these are exactly in that position, but you want it to taper nicely over this 8 inches. So we're going to come down to about right here where our next set's going to be. And again, one going this way, one going this way. We're going to pull these out. Sorry about the lighting situation in here. We're out in the garage, and the motion sensor light likes to turn on and off, and so sometimes the lighting changes as we're sitting here doing this. So I apologize for that, but it is what it is. So there we've got the next set. Now we're going to move down here a little farther towards the end. We're going to grab this one going this way, this one going this way. Now we're just going to cut these off, and as you cut them, you kind of massage it and tuck it back into the inside of the rope. And we're just going to use a knife here. There's no reason to get fancy. Okay, you see I kind of just worked that out. And now those ends have disappeared, and now we've tapered from 12 strands down here where our taper starts to 6 strands down here on the end. All right, forgot to grab my cutting board here. So for the end out here, we still want to taper these ends just a little bit. So all we're going to do is going to lay this on the cutting board. We're going to take our knife and put it at a pretty steep angle here to the rope. And then we're just going to cut down through all these. Really helps to have a sharp knife to do that. And you can kind of see on there, I don't know if you can see very well. Yeah, you can see there, we got a taper on that. And now those last few strands taper over about that last inch of rope. So that's how that's how I do my tapers. Makes a good, nice 8-inch long taper on there. And that's going to make a good strong rope when we're done. So the next part, we're actually going to do the splice here. So I've got to get 2 feet of rope inside this one. Don't start at the 2-foot mark, by the way. Don't measure down here and say I got 2 feet of rope and come down here to the 2-foot mark. You're going to end up short. You got to come out here, got to give yourself probably about 3 feet on this, because as this expands, this is going to expand to go around the core. It also shrinks in length. So don't make that mistake. It is kind of a pain to have to undo your splice, come down a little bit farther to start to find the exit point here. So I've come down about 3 feet, and I'm just going to work this, and just being a new rope, they have a tendency to be kind of stiff a little bit. So you just got to come down here and you just got to work that braid all the way along, because we got to run our tag in through that. All right, here's where this, I'm telling you, this cleaning rod is the way to go. Messing with a fid, anything, you got to try to fish a fid through that length. That's for the birds, man. This cleaning rod method is the way to go. So we're going to take our cleaning rod. We're going to start down here, and we're just going to just go in between two strands, and then we're just going to run this cleaning rod up through the center. And it is, you do got to make sure as you're doing this, be careful. It's easy to pop it out and go around a strand real easy. So you just want to be careful as you're doing this and just work it up. Oh, see, I almost did it there as I'm telling you to be careful. Okay, got that worked up in there, and we're going to find a spot. Basically, when you come out here, go back in, you want to leave a good rule of thumb as you use rope diameters. Most everything you do when splicing rope is using a rope diameter as a constant measurement. So you basically want to go one rope diameter down is where we're going to enter. So, and I want to make sure it's on the same side that this is coming out. So we want this to just go turn and go right back in. So I'm just going to pick a spot right here. There we go. Pick a spot right there, run the cleaning rod out, and we're just going to scrunch this all up on here. And this will make your life a little easier if you kind of work the hole up here where we're going to enter, work it open with your fingers a little bit. And then lay this out here. One of the other staples of working with rope, electrical tape. And what I like to do is just kind of take those end strands and I just kind of wrap them around the outside of that cleaning rod and then wrap my tape up on there. It's easier to do when you guys aren't watching. Go up there a little bit and come back down. Don't get too carried away with this because you're going to have to undo all this tape, but I want to make sure you're down onto the rod good enough and up onto the rope good enough. And now the beauty of the cleaning rod method of rope splicing. Done.
So you can use something other than a cleaning rod, just any kind of rod?
You could use just about any kind of rod you have around. Small diameter. Use a coat hanger. Yeah, coat hanger would work. Just want to make sure when you straighten it out, cut it and straighten out, just make sure you clean up the end just a little bit so you don't have any of the little barbs on there that might nick your rope or catch a strand of your rope like that. Just take a little sandpaper and clean them up. But just about anything like that, but a 3 foot long or so. If you don't have a cleaning rod, you can run down to your hardware store, get a little piece of 1/8 inch steel. They have 3 foot sections of round rod at your Home Depot. A little piece of 1/8 inch steel would work just fine. Like I said, just take a little sandpaper and maybe round off the end a little bit, smooth it out. That's the nice thing about a cleaning rod is they're already nice and smooth. All the sharp edges are gone, so you don't nick up a barrel. It's just the best thing I found. So anyway, now we got our end. Just want to make sure we straighten that out. Gonna get might get a little residual tape on there, but not too bad. And now we're gonna milk the cow. So we're gonna start pulling this, and you got to pull this. You really want to put some pressure on this. Pull everything up inside nice and tight. And you really, like I say, you really want to pull on this pretty good. This just helps seat everything in. Nice. And there you go. It comes down. And if you didn't know that was tapered right there, you can't find where the inside starts. You know, down here it's rope, up here it's double, but it's such a nice smooth taper right there. That's exactly what you want when you're dealing with rope like this. It's that nice smooth taper so you don't have a stress point and cause a weak point in your rope. All right, we're going to show you the constrictor knot method of tying on a winch rope. And sorry if you hear a little bit of dog whining in the background. Pearl, Dave's dog, was getting a little antsy about being left out of the party here. So you may hear her whining in the background a little bit, but no big deal. We love Pearlie. She's a good dog. So here's our piece of pipe. This is our substitute winch drum so that I can show you up here in an easy to see format how to tie this constrictor knot, tie this on. So winch rope goes underneath. I happen to have a weird truck. My power wagon comes factory with a winch, and it's actually a custom worn, and the rope goes over the top of the drum. So it's a little easier to actually tie this on that truck because it goes over the top. It's easier to see the knot, but winch rope's going to come under from the bottom like this. And we are going to cross over. Going to come under the bottom. Going to come up on the outside. Going to cross over to the center. And this is going to come up around again. Now, if you're familiar with a clove hitch, this comes around and you tuck it under, and that's a clove hitch. But we're going to do one more step to turn this into a constrictor knot. Need a little bit more tag end here. So this comes around. We have our X here. So we're going to go from the outside here. We're going to go under into the middle and go under our X right there with our end. And that's going to form our constrictor knot. And if you pull this down, you can kind of see the structure now of how that constrictor knot works. This wrap goes over top of the crossing wraps. And this is nice. This is an old knot. This knot's been around forever. It's an ancient knot. They typically use it for like bundling up a bundle of like sticks or tying it around the mouth of a bag to tie a bag closed. This knot, when it gets pulled tight, it doesn't come undone. It's crazy how simple this structure is, but how well it stays tight. Depending on the rope material you're using, you may not be able to actually undo this knot. You may have to cut it to get it to come apart. It pulls that tight. As long as it's around a semi-round drum or round, relatively round material, the more you pull on it, the tighter it gets, and it just doesn't come loose. So this knot will lay on there like that. So if you started, it would be right there, but it's easier to do this with kind of an extra wrap up around. And now what you do is you take this tag end, and typically it'd be a little bit longer, but you're going to lay this along your winch drum and just run a couple wraps of electrical tape around it. And then as you start spooling in, your first wrap of rope is going to come up on the inside of all this and start wrapping this direction. Throw another wrap or two on there. So the underneath of your drum, come from underneath, going to wrap around, and it's going to bury that tag end underneath your windings of rope. And it works just fine. Now, you can see it's not going to leave you with the nice picture perfect, pretty wraps for these first couple of layers. Not a problem. This is by far the best way to attach a rope. We discovered, working with the off-road recovery team, they actually discovered by accident one day that you can spool this all the way out, and it'll actually hold the weight of a vehicle on there. They discovered it by accident. They were in a recovery where they decided to lower the vehicle down to a lower rope. It was dark, and they had multiple people working on it, and they were winching out and didn't realize that they actually didn't have another layer of rope, and ran it out, and they actually ran right to the end of that, and that held the load on there. Now, if you do that with a standard one of these, that's going to pop that bolt off, and it's just they would have lost that vehicle down the hill. I don't recommend this. Don't get me wrong. I don't recommend running this out till you're to the knot, but it will hold in that situation. But that's another big advantage of this, is you're not going to lose your winch line if you actually accidentally go out a little too far. May not be able to winch in because your winch drum may still just twist underneath this knot, and you may not be able to actually winch. And you still do need to keep at least 10 wraps on here with a rope to make sure you've always got that winch power on there. But this knot will hold a load the way it's designed. So we're going to go ahead now. Now that you've kind of seen this on the pipe, we're going to go ahead and pull the Jeep in here, and we're going to do this on the Jeep. All right, right here on the front of the Jeep, you have to just bear with me for the lighting. It's kind of impossible to light the inside here correctly. So step one is to take out the screw holding the end of the old rope in here. And get that out of the way. Okay, now we'll get the new rope going. Okay. All right, so we're going to thread this in, go underneath the drum. Very important. And you got to get all your hands and fingers in here. Okay. To make this easier to see for everybody, I'm going to pull this rope up and out like this, just so that it's kind of up here where you can see it. So we're going to cross over our rope here. We're going to make another wrap around. I got to get more tag in. So we're crossing over our rope. We're going to take this tag in. We're going to get all up in the way here again and go around the and lose the rope back behind the bumper temporarily. There we go. So you can see why I built you guys a visual aid for this process, because there's just no way to see it up underneath the Jeep very well. But we'll try. All right, so here we got our X like we want it. So can't really see in there, but there's our X the way we want it. We're going to take this, we're going to go around the rope underneath the X, and we're going to pull a little bit of tag. And I know this looks like a disaster, but as we pull this and get it underneath there, we now have our constrictor knot tied right over the top of our rope. And as we pull that tight, that's going to tighten down as our constrictor knot. And we're going to tape the end down, and then we'll start spooling this in.
So you tape the tail?
Yep, just tape the tag. This is the hardest part of this process, is getting it right. Yep, getting it to bite the first time. Okay, in. A little bit more. Good. Okay, go in. Okay. All right. Yeah, pretty close. Okay, so step next, I'll pull my truck out here and we'll, yep. All right, fire you guys up here. See what we got. We're now out in the street in front of my house. Hopefully my neighbors don't have to go anywhere real quick, but we got about our 10 wraps on there. See our constrictor knot over there at the end. And then down that way, we got the truck. So now we're going to tension this. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Dave do the winching inside the Jeep. He's going to pull his park brake on just one notch or two, so we have a little extra resistance. It is uphill just slightly out here in the front, so we don't need a whole lot of extra resistance, but we'll go ahead and tighten this up this way and show you that process. All right, so we got park brake on back here. I'm going to stand back from the winch a little bit. Normally you wouldn't want to be in this position when you're winching, but it is kind of critical to get this wrapped on there right and tensioned. So I'm going to stand out here. I got a glove on so I can hold on to this rope, and I'm going to help guide it on as he winches. And I don't know if you can hear the winch working in there very well, but the winch is working pretty good. This is a good taut line. You want to make sure you do this to get good tension on this for these first, especially with a new rope. You really need to lay this in there nice the first time, nice as you can. So I'm guiding this the whole way, spooling it on, and we're just about around to where our constrictor knot is, our first layer. We are going to do this kind of in stages as well. We don't necessarily want our winch to run the whole 100 feet in under tension. We'll do a little winch break here in just a second, now that we got those first 2 layers on. And you can see our constrictor knot just about disappeared with that layer of rope. And we'll just go ahead and winch this on the rest of the way. All right, there you go. Winch all spooled on, pulled up here nice and tight to the front. Turned out really well. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. That was the way I do my winches. I use my winches a lot with the recovery group, both on the truck and on the Jeep. Oh, hey, look. I'm missing an A on my Ram. Right there. I got an A-hole in the front of my truck. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that winch. A little winch tutorial. That's how I do all my winches. Took that rope, build it out to be a good winch rope for him. And then we're going to take that old winch rope. We're going to do the same process that we just did. And we're going to put some new ends on it. We're going to make 2 45-ish, 45-ish foot extensions out of his old winch rope. But there you go. That's a winch install and or winch rope install. Not a winch install, winch rope install. But hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you on the next one.